The actual combustion event as the fuel ignites is a major source of a loss of power if there are issues that are affecting this part of the combustion process. If the flame front is not smoothly moving, if it's not igniting correctly, if it's misfiring, you're going to experience that as a misfire, a loss of power, a hesitancy when you press the accelerator. And when it happens, we're often at a complete loss as to what the actual cause of this problem is. In this video, we're going to do a deep dive in all the possible problems, how to diagnose it. We're going to look at the error codes involved and help you to get to the bottom of that problem as quickly as possible. The bang, this is the combustion stroke. This is where all the fun and the magic happens inside the engine. What can actually affect the combustion stroke of the engine? Poor fueling, weak ignition are the major contributing factors that cause the engine to hesitate, misfire or lose power. The spark plug is that critical component in the engine that fires the spark that ignites this fuel air charge, obviously not in diesel engines. Your modern iridium and platinum plugs are usually good for 60,000 miles. I remember on older engines we had copper cord spark plugs and these needed to be replaced annually and we needed to clean them quite often. If these plugs have become degraded, that will affect the spark, the power from the spark. P0301 and P0302 will indicate which cylinder has a problem with the spark. Inspect the plugs one at a time. Just check that they're not worn, that the electrodes are correct, that the gaps are consistent between the electrode and the tip of the spark plug. And we're looking for soot or oil or carbon buildup on the spark plug itself. Ignition coils are what take your 12-volt charge from the battery and step it up to such a point it can jump that air gap in the plug. Modern engines typically have a different coil for each spark plug. If that coil is degraded, the spark is not going to be as strong. It's going to fail. You're going to have a misfire. And again, at higher RPM, it's going to manifest itself more strongly than at lower RPM. P0351, with the number incrementally increasing depending on which cylinder is causing the problem, will give you an idea of which ignition coil you should be looking at. You'd also get the P0301 series of error codes because it's related to a spark issue. Swapping over the coils and seeing if the error code has jumped to the cylinder we've moved it to is a great way of diagnosing whether it is a spark plug or whether it is the ignition coil, and can just confirm which coil needs to be replaced fairly easily. The fuel filter sits between the tank and the engine, effectively screening out contaminants. Now, a lot of modern engines don't have a changeable fuel filter. It's built into the fuel supply system. But if there's a blockage in the fuel supply, particularly through any filter, that is going to mean you're not getting enough fuel at the engine. It's not going to have the correct mix. The stoichiometric ratio is going to be off and the engine is going to be down on power. It's going to misfire. You're going to lose power when accelerating. P0087 is a typical error code you'll get to indicate there is insufficient fuel arriving at the injectors. If that fuel rail pressure is too low, it could be a number of things within the fuel system. The fuel injectors themselves spray a fine mist of fuel into the engine itself or into the intake, depending on whether it's direct injection or port injection. If these are clogged, that mist is going to be compromised. It's not going to burn as effectively. Direct injections particularly are very vulnerable to carbon buildup on the intake, and this can silt up the fuel injectors, causing all sorts of problems and lots of misfires. P0200 would indicate there is an injector circuit malfunction somewhere with a 201 to 208 code addendum on that, depending on which cylinder is affected. But the leaking injector can also throw a P0172 or P0175, and a blocked injector tends to trigger a P0171 or P0174 error code. The fuel pump and fuel pressure, this is the critical thing. The injectors really are just gates that open and close. They need the fuel pressure behind them in order to work effectively. If the fuel pump is not working correctly, that pressure is going to be too low. You're not going to get sufficient fuel into the engine. You might get adequate pressure at idle, at low RPM, but as soon as you start to increase the throttle, you're going to notice you're hitting flat spots and problems because enough fuel can't be supplied to the engine. Some modern fuel systems operate at 2000 bars of pressure, which is significant. It doesn't take much to degrade that to a level where the engine is going to be down on power or giving you flat spots. P0087 indicates that the fuel rail pressure is too low. P0088 indicates that the fuel rail pressure is too high. P0190 to P0193 cover the fuel pressure rail sensor as well. But sometimes it's not the injector, it's not the fuel system, it is the sensor that is the problem. Don't get caught out. it could be just a sensor that's giving wrong readings back when everything else is working correctly. Engine knock and detonation, this is where the fuel ignites prematurely in the engine. That can cause you to lose power accelerating. You'll typically notice a pinking or pinging noise. You'll hear this detonation happening inside the engine. Your modern engine has a knock sensor. It's very good at backing things off when it detects this is happening. So if it's happening early, it's going to back off early on the power, and you really are going to feel that as a driver. It will typically retard the timing. Now, if you knock the timing back by say 10 degrees, you're going to feel that as a driver is going to be significantly down on power. Make sure you're using the correct octane of fuel. Some engines are designed for high octane fuels, and if you put the low octane stuff in, they don't perform as well. Sometimes it may just be an old batch. It's been sitting in the fuel station forecourt for a period of time and it started to degrade. When you actually test the fuels that come out, you don't always get the claimed octane rating. P0325, P0330, P0327 and P0332 can indicate problems with the knock sensor or the signals coming from the knock sensor. The EGR valve, this allows a little bit of exhaust gases into the intake to reduce the nitrogen gas emissions from the engine. If the EGR is stuck open or it's stuck closed, it's going to affect the running of the engine. It could just be caused by carbon building up in the intake through the EGR system or in the mechanism of the EGR itself, causing it to stick. P0400 would be the error code indicating there is a malfunction with the EGR system. P0401 or 402 would indicate there is insufficient or too much flow coming from the EGR. And P0403 that there's just a malfunction with the EGR circuit somewhere. If you're getting a flow too low or flow too high, it's almost certainly going to be an EGR that is stuck open or stuck closed. Bad earth connections, you need a good circuit, a good connection to get everything running in the engine. And there are instances where when things get warm, the connections break down with vibrations from accelerating. That can cause a significant break in the connection at certain points or at certain sets of vibrations coming from the road. It can be very hard to track down earth problems, and a lot of the symptoms you get can mimic a lot of these other faults we've discussed. Check the main earth straps from the battery to the earth part of the car chassis. We're looking for corrosion. Sometimes corrosion builds up, causing the contact to weaken. If you can, clean the connections, take the corrosion off and restore them. If you've enjoyed the video, please boot the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please do so. We'd hate you to miss out on the great content we've got planned. Thanks for watching. See you in the next videos.